Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast, episode 1083. My interview with Kaki Okumura. We're discussing her new book, Wa, The Art of Balance. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, Kaki. Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's I'm really excited to be here.
Super exciting. And guys listening on the podcast, if you want to check it out, the YouTube channel, we do have this on YouTube as well. So check it out there. Kaki, welcome to the show. You're based in New York. Is that right?
I'm in New York right now. Been here for a little bit now.
When you say a little bit, how long are we talking?
Let me think. I think it's been just about 2 years, a little bit more than that. Yeah.
Okay, and you grew up in America or Japan? Because you got Japanese heritage.
Brief intro to my background. I was born in the US in Dallas, to be precise. When I was around 8, I moved to New York, not into the city. I lived around the suburbs, but I was there until middle school, and then I headed back to Tokyo with my family, where I finished high school, and then came to the US for college.
Okay. How was that transition going from, growing up in America, then, halfway through high school going to Japan? Like, that would have been a fair adjustment.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely adjustment, but I went to an international school, so my education was English, which made things easier, but there definitely is a cultural shift and just, terms of lifestyle, totally different. So in ways, it's really exciting for me because Tokyo is a very safe city. So as a middle schooler, I got to explore a lot on my own a bit more, but yeah, very different.
Very different. Yeah, cool. I like that. I want to hear more about it. So I lived in Japan for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 years in total.
Wow.
So it was a good time there in Bumaken, near Takasaki.
Yeah.
And, it's a great culture. So when I saw your book and started reading your book now as well, I resonate with a lot of the messages you send across there. So looking forward to delve into that as well. Tell me, your parents both Japanese?
Yes, my parents are both Japanese, but they moved to the US when I was born in Texas, so
in Texas, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've got family over in Japan still, I assume.
Yeah,
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah, all of my extended family's in Japan. My parents are in Japan now, so I feel very close to Japan still today.
Yeah. And you're a writer and illustrator, and you've launched a book now called, is it Wa, The Art of Balance, or WA, The Art of Balance?
Yes.
Do you say Wa?
Yeah, it's called Wa. Just to give a bit of a background behind the title. If you're not familiar with Japanese, it can sound like an odd name, but Wa is actually the Japanese character to describe Japanese things. So, washi is Japanese paper, washoku is Japanese food, wafuku is Japanese clothing. So it's like the kanji used to describe Japanese things, but the meaning behind that character is harmony. So it's kind of underlines that principle of like, the world works around harmony and balance, and we should be paying attention to it. And so I thought it was a very fitting character to describe the book, which, a lot of my ideas revolve around the ideas around balance. So it's called Wa, The Art of Balance.
Wa, The Art of Balance. Love it. One of my biggest goals really is to try and find greater balance. I'm one of those characters that can be quite disciplined and can have a lot of balance, but at the same time, I can sway wildly in opposite directions too.
For sure.
Are you a balanced person?
I mean, yeah, I think balance it's constantly a balancing act. It's not you achieve it once and it's kind of like you're set to go. I do definitely find myself in spaces where I feel like maybe I'm working too much, not resting enough, or, devoting my energy to things that don't necessarily resonate with my well-being. But my approach is really about, checking in with yourself, slowing down. And through that, I think helps me readjust and find that balance as well. So Am I a balanced person? Not all the time. I wish.
Yeah. I think, well, probably a lot of people. It's one of those Stoic principles as well, which is why it's
Yeah.
one of my, focuses, I suppose. But look, going beyond that, what got you into writing about Japanese culture? And obviously, you're a great illustrator as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a question I get very often. And to be honest, I'm not trained in writing. I didn't necessarily study it or anything, but I think, coming out of high school in Japan, and then when it came back to the US, as a kid, I didn't think about it too deeply, but growing older, being able to compare the two cultures and realizing like, oh, the things that really make them different, in terms of lifestyle, values, like I have friends who also went to that international school, moved abroad, and it'd always be like the topic of conversation of just how different things were. And I felt like writing is a way for me to process my own ideas and my own ways of thinking. And I felt, inclined to just post it online. I didn't really have a goal for it. It was really just like trying to put my thoughts out there and the things that I noticed that are different between the US and Japan. And
Right.
I did that for a while before I got any traction.
When
But
did you start that? Like, were you still in school or out of school? What was your situation?
I started in college, but I was writing for a while with like no audience. I think it was only really after the pandemic or at the beginning of the pandemic when people were spending more time at home, were picking up new hobbies and interests that, yeah, I began to pick up some momentum.
Wow. Okay. So just how many years ago did you start, finding this joy for writing?
Like I probably began writing maybe junior year of college, so I'm gonna give away my age, but that was like
That's okay.
2018, 2019.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So quite young, obviously. Okay, that's cool. So you started writing in your college days. What were you studying at the time? What were you studying?
Yeah, I studied economics, so it was not
Wow.
related to writing or the arts at all. I think something, I've always been pretty good with numbers, thinking like in a very quantitative kind of way, but I've always also had like this creative side of me, which I went to a liberal arts school, which allowed me to kind of flex both in a way. And yeah, I took a lot of art classes in college. There's like an entrepreneurship center, which they really encouraged me to, find the things that I were interested in and follow those passions. I still completed my economics degree, but at the same time, I had a lot of opportunities to write, to pursue art. And yeah, that has been really valuable for me.
So it's kind of that balance between the academic side of thing and the art side of thing, or the economics, which, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would say I'm kind of risk averse by nature, and pursuing an art degree wholeheartedly would have been really difficult for me. But being able to do both at the same time has, yeah, been a lot,
And
very
now you
valuable.
just focus on the art, the writing, the illustrating. Is that your full-time focus, or do you have a day job?
No, I do have a day job, but I work in design. So it's still for me, it's a really nice blend of thinking, very logically, but also balancing that kind of logic flow with like, okay, how do we come up with creative solutions? So yeah, I would say
Okay.
I still kind of flex both sides.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So tell us, so you studied in Japan in college, or did you come back to America to study
College was in the US. Yeah.
in the US? Okay.
Yeah.
And so you started this just writing, and you posted on Medium, is that right? Is that
Yes.
okumura.medium.com? Is that the right link?
Yeah. kokumura.medium.com.
Kokumura.medium.com. So that's where you started posting all your blogs or your writings?
Yeah. If you go back like way, way in the beginning, I'm not even writing about health and wellness all the time. I'm writing about random topics, anything that really interested me. But yeah, once I started picking up a bit more momentum, I started to really focus on topics that I felt like a lot of people were interested in and also needed support with. I think health and well-being, it's a very complicated topic for something that feels very straightforward. People have very different relationships with food, with their body, with the idea of rest and when to do it. And so, I think being able to offer a different perspective than what's offered in the US, but maybe that could be more broadly said to like Western world. I feel like it's been very helpful for a lot of my readers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do find that in your writing, it's quite easy to digest, but it's also, not complicated. It's so simple, but practical, I suppose. Is that the word I'm looking for? Like it actually makes sense, and you can actually take it on much easier. Whereas I think a lot of the self-help journey that I've been exposed to, it's so confusing and so diverse and so complicated. And I think as we go down these holes, it just makes things harder and harder, and we end up becoming worse for it rather than actually better.
I think, when things become overcomplicated, they become frustrating. It limits us in a lot of different ways. And I think when I offer advice, I'm really thinking about, okay, what is the goal of being healthy anyways? What's the goal of, finding a good place with our well-being? And it's to find freedom, is to do the things that we want, to follow our passion, to have energy to, pursue the things that interest us. And if we are, counting calories, following a specific diet, really adhering to a certain sort of like strict daily routine, and that can limit a lot of people. I will say it works for a lot of people as well. Some people really like that structure and they enjoy it. But it's not for everyone. So being able to offer an alternative, which is focus more on like, okay, how can we make things more simple? How can we focus on the things that, make a big impact without, having to hash out all those details? I think that's been a big focus of my work.
Yeah, I like it. And very much a Japanese sort of approach to life and health and longevity, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a lot of it's based on what I've learned in Japan. And I wouldn't say everything though. A lot of the lessons there are lessons to learn from the US in terms of, the freedom of expression or being able to do the things that you want. So there's a little bit of both. I will say the majority of my ideas come from Japanese culture and ways of thinking.
Yeah. So your book's titled Wa, The Art of Balance, Live Healthier, Happier, and Longer the Japanese Way.
Yeah.
And you focus in the book on nourish, move, rest, and socialize, right? Those 4 areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt as though, when we think about a healthy lifestyle, a lot of people focus on, what to eat or how to exercise, which are also important. But I think parts of our well-being, a lot of it is around, how do we manage stress? How do we sleep well? Our social connections, how do we build healthy relationships and meaningful ones? And so being able to blend that all together, I think builds a really strong foundation for, doing other things that we may have interest in.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, finding the balance between it all too.
Yeah, you don't want
to. Well, I've found it in my life where I focus so much on work and it absorbs everything, but then my socializing or relationships fall apart, or my health falls apart, or maybe then I focus on health and work, and then relationships fall. It's just finding that balance between everything.
Yeah, the whole thing is about not going to extremes with anything and being able to find what feels right for you, and being able to readjust and check in with yourself and giving yourself the space and time to do that as well.
But what happens if you're one of those people that like to go at extremes at anything you pursue? Because I'm maybe one of those people, and I know there's a lot of people out there that like to take it to that next level.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, I think people have different preferences. So if it works for you, I think, by all means continue it. There's nothing wrong with, a lifestyle that works for you. But if you find yourself, being burned out very quickly, or finding there's a part of your life that you feel like you would like to devote more energy to, but are struggling to, it's really about at first slowing down. So giving yourself some space for mindfulness. So in that case, maybe the pillar you want to focus on is rest. And some suggestions I give in there are things around like writing, things around, spending time in nature. There are a lot of different ways that you can kind of give yourself that space, but once you have that, maybe it'll be easier to readjust that and slow down in terms of, okay, maybe I'm overworking a bit too much lately. I'm going to schedule some time with my family. But that thought process doesn't really happen like, immediately, like the day after. I think it really takes us time to like slow down from work to start to make those habits really last.
Yes, it's true. And you need to have that balance daily, I think, too. If you can bring it into your day, because you'll rest better at night. Obviously, that'll help as well. I had this boss in Japan. He was a great guy. I really enjoyed his company most of the times. But he was just prolific. Well, from my point of view anyway, worked really hard. Always worked hard. He exercised, always was up early, always exercising, partied, like to party hard, He had socialize, like he had this extreme levels of everything. And I don't know how his relationships personally were. I can't comment on that. But from what I saw of him, and he was my dad's age at the time, he was just go, go, go. So can we find balance at our own pace, I suppose? You know what I mean? Like, can we just find balance in those areas? And if that means it's up here, going fast and extreme, can we still have balance across the board, but just on that extreme level?
I think, the idea of it's a very like American, like work hard, party hard, but like to some people, like they work really hard because they want to like release all of that stress. And to someone else, like looking at that, it might just look like high levels of activity all across. But to that person, I think, waking up early to exercise, that's their form of stress relief. That's actually a form of self-care for them. And so, for someone where exercise is not something that comes naturally, it's not something that, you feel like you want to be like sweating it out. That might look like, stressful, but I think, like you mentioned, it's very possible to, work hard, but also maybe you exercise a lot and you have a really like loud, robust social life. And that's just the kind of lifestyle that you enjoy. It doesn't, I think in some ways, having a big friend group, that can be a way of, recharging for someone. And it goes back to the idea of, introverts, extroverts. Some people find socializing re-energizing, and for others, it's tiring. But what we physically see is not exactly what a person internally experiences. So if you like levels of everything, it's definitely possible.
Well, I wonder if it's just that balance again between things. If you work really hard and you'll go, go, go all the time, to balance that out, you need to have lots of rest or lots of play or lots of social. I don't know, whereas if you're more on a level field most of the time, everything will just be a bit more balanced.
Yeah, for sure. I think it really depends on the person. I think it also depends on where we are in life. It's not true for everyone, but kind of as a generic example, when you're younger, it's a lot easier to work really hard, party really hard, have a lot of things going on. Maybe when you grow older, your priorities change and you're more interested in, having a more quiet, slowed down life. That's not necessarily true for everyone, but, I think we should also accommodate, how time changes us, and the person we are at 20 is not the same person we are at 30, 40, 50. So being able to think about that as well.
Very similar, but very different. We are when we age. What do you talk, like when I look at the Japanese culture living there, the work culture, the school culture, quite extreme compared to the Western culture, like long hours at school, long hours at work. How do you see that from your perspective as far as the balance is concerned? Because that to me seems, I just remember on holidays for Japanese, it was like, oh, going on a holiday 3 days and then fly out and fly back. And it's like, what? Like, it's 4 weeks for us. That's a holiday. But
yeah, I think when I say, a lot of my ideas from my book are brought from Japanese culture, that doesn't necessarily equate that everything about Japanese culture is super balanced. I think long working hours, very true. And a lot of schools can feel very long. A lot of students, their entire lives are built into the student life system. Wake up early, go to classes, then they have bukatsu, which is like after school activities, go home, cram school. So it's not like everything is super balanced. What I will say, something that I appreciate about Japanese schools though, is how they instill a sense of responsibility very early when they're very young. Something that I think shocks a lot of other countries when they find out is that Japanese students are responsible for cleaning after their own schools. So they don't really have janitors to clean the bathroom, the classrooms. They might have like electricians to do the major stuff, but in general, students look after themselves. And I think that's reflected in Japanese society. You go to Tokyo, giant, enormous city, but sidewalks usually are very clean. Subways are very clean. And I think the idea of, seeing yourself as part of a community is actually really helpful in understanding that, yeah, you're part of like well, actually, let me flip it for a second. When in the US, there's a lot of focus on the individual. I think a lot of people feel a lot of pressure from that. They feel the need to be exceptional. They feel the need to stand out. And there is a lot of value from that. But I think that can also lead to perfectionism, burnout, not feeling like you're enough. So being able to see yourself within a larger whole, I think there's a lot of social benefits and also, benefits for your inner peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that individualistic society versus the collective sort of society, right?
Yeah.
And there's, I think, a balance between the two as well, because there are some very good points about that Western style compared to the Eastern style of culture. I do remember the kids at school like cleaning the floors and the toilets and that, and I was like, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like you don't really think it's cool, but
no, you probably don't. But I mean, I used to be an area manager for a very popular retail outlet, and for a long time it was, about the staff cleaning the store, because if they took responsibility for their own store, they're more likely to keep it clean as they work throughout the day. Whereas if you start bringing in cleaners, they just sort of go, okay, well, someone's going to come in and clean that up anyway. I don't have to worry. It was that same sort of mindset.
No, for sure.
Which is, I think, good. So let's talk a little bit about some of these topics in your book, Nourish, Move, Rest, Socialise. And there's some valid points in the book. I don't want to give too much away because I think the book's, certainly something you need to pick up and have a read of. It's easy to read, and the messages in there are really powerful, simple but powerful. So when you talk about Nourish, what are we looking at? We're looking at diet and health?
Yes. So I would say it's partly around, how to, it's about like eating vegetables, yes, and making balanced meals, but it's also about how to approach the act of eating. To give a very specific example, I think when you talk about healthy eating in the US, there's a large focus on like, okay, you got to eat salads, you got to eat vegetables, fresh fruit, raw fruit, or whatever. Which is true. You do need a lot of vegetables and whole foods to have a very healthy and complete diet. But something I appreciate about the Japanese approach is that there's a large focus on moderation, which is something I talk about in the book, is that, it would be sad to go through life without eating another sweet thing. Some of our favorite foods are maybe not like the healthiest for our bodies, but, I think part of that brings us joy, and a life without joy is not one we can sustain. And so being able to enjoy these foods in moderation and kind of untangling, that idea that ice cream is bad for you, or, French fries is bad for you, but it's about like, okay, dessert every night, a lot of it probably not great for your health, but, if you're having something homemade that your mom made, that is nourishing your body in a way, like very spiritually. It helps you connect with other people. It's something you enjoy. So, Nourish is about addressing our relationship with food and how we can find a balanced way to approach, the things that may not feel like they're healthy in the moment, but in moderation are totally fine, and we can live very healthy, fulfilled lives with it.
Yeah. And that's right. I mean, often we just look at the food side of it, but the nourishing side of the joy from eating food, or the joy from eating with people. I know Japanese culture, when I used to go out and eat, I just loved how it was done. It was very much a shared meal. You know, you use the big chopsticks to grab the food off the main plate, and then the little ones, and you'd sit there sometimes for hours eating as well, and digesting that food. But that nourishment of the environment was probably more profound than the food itself, potentially. But yeah, it surprised me how much we seem to eat over the evening. But yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I never gained weight in Japan. I lost weight, you know, more times.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
so it's really interesting. And you're right, the balance there. It's not everything like you talk about in the book, the super size, you know,
Mm,
the large size compared to the large size in Japan, and how different it is.
yeah. People are angry in the beginning, but then they find that their health improves after a while. And they're like, you know what? This like moderate portion kind of works for me now.
Yeah, but you're
Yeah.
right. Like if you're going for a hike in nature in Japan, which a lot of people do on a Sunday, and you'll see soft serve ice creams being served everywhere, particularly in the summertime. And you'd see
Yeah.
every Japanese person, the kid and the adult and the grandma, all eating an ice cream. Like there is that sense of balance. Mm.
Yeah. No, for sure. I love that visual that you kind of described as well. Captures what my Japanese summer is very
Yeah,
clearly.
oh, it's glorious. That's what we used to do on the weekends. So
Yeah.
nourishing, moving, or move. Talking about exercise. How do we approach
Yeah.
that?
So this is also the approach is not just, I give some exercise tips, things you can do, but also, I think in the US exercises thought of as like if it's not strenuous, you aren't working yourself hard enough, like it's not worth it. But I think the Japanese approach is a bit more around like, okay, exercise can be embedded in a lifestyle. So I think one
Mm,
notable key difference about living in Japan is people walk more. I think that makes a really remarkable difference over time. It's not like you're walking miles every day, but you do it every day. And that makes a big difference. I think also the idea of like, stretching, doing things that, you know, may not necessarily make you out of breath, but will stretch your muscles, will help you be flexible, prevent injuries. You can still do the things you want. That's also very important. And my focus is more on how to find something you enjoy. So, we can talk about the benefits of running all day, but if you hate running, there's really no point in even talking about it. Um, I feel like people should focus on things that they enjoy, want to do every day, look forward to doing. It's kind of like, almost finding a job. If you'll look for a job, you'll try it. If you hate it, you'll quit. No one gets angry at you. If you are looking to exercise and you go to the gym and you quit, there's a lot of self-guilt involved, but it's about trying to move on from that and think of it as like, okay, gym may not be for me, but maybe yoga is, or maybe it's
mm.
biking, maybe it's hiking. So finding what you really enjoy is really important to that idea.
Yeah, agree. So incorporating movement into your daily activities in a enjoyable way. And I like absolutely agree. Like if you're doing something, even if you enjoy it, like I swim, but if I did that every morning, which I've
Yeah.
done in times in my life, I do get to a point where I'm just like, oh, it's just getting a bit boring and mundane, or and I get frustrated and want to change it. So I now find the balance of doing a variety of different things throughout my day, but still
Yeah.
making sure I move every day. And again, I'm probably a little bit extreme in that sense sometimes, compared to others. But I think just moving is a great thing,
Yeah.
and we probably don't think about it enough. I remember back to Japan again, going to the school there. The young kids, when I used to teach at a primary school, every morning before or when the bell went off or whenever it was, the whole school would be out doing laps around the oval.
Oh,
And it was just this like everyone's getting out there, and it didn't matter if you ran or walked or played, as long as you were out there moving. That's what happened. And I saw all the kids doing their own thing. But it was a really good sense of balance, and what a great way to start the day. I just thought that's a great way for the kids to get energized to learn.
yeah, no, I love that.
So good lessons there. The rest side of things, hard for some, easy for others.
Yeah, I think I take a kind of an interesting approach with rest in that I define rest not just as like sleeping or slowing down, but rest is what re-energizes you. And so that kind of goes back to the idea of doing everything at a high level, but what re-energizes you might make someone really tired, but it just looks different, but how you feel inside is the same. And so I talk a little bit about curiosity and Japanese shokunin. So shokunin is like a craftsman. And so, when you look at these people, they seem like perfectionists. They seem like they're working really hard. And there's an element of that, but I think they're really invested in their work, not because they have to, but because they really want to. And so there's a really large element of curiosity, of exploration. And so I talk about, how to kind of cultivate that energy, how to find things that you enjoy and letting go of the pressure to, perform all the time, but also just doing certain things because you enjoy it. And yeah, I would say, I also talk about sleep and rest and how to slow down, but I think it's important to think of rest as not just slowing down, but also how do we re-energize.
So things like, bonsais, for example, having a hobby on the side that is in some ways resting, but enjoyable.
No, for sure.
Incorporating that. Like I love cooking. So, for me, and I know it's a stressful chore for a lot of people, but for me, it's something that I actually like to do, more.
Yeah. And you might find it, it piques other curiosities or interests, and maybe it's like a very calming experience. So that's a great example.
How do you find rest as far as curiosity is concerned? Because I often think that we don't spend enough time just contemplating or thinking, about life, about work, about whatever. Just having that time to think. And I know many people say, well, I do it when I'm exercising, or I do it when I'm, in the shower or whatever, but I don't know if that's necessarily the right time to do it. Do you talk about just time to think?
Yeah. I think my writing actually kind of was born out of this need to create time for myself to think. And I think for me, writing is my outlet, being able to process my thoughts and being able to put them into words. And so I have found, not everything that I write goes public. Journaling, being able to, think about things that, I don't necessarily have answers, but, creating questions, reflecting on, ideas that I have. Being able to create space for that at the end of the day is usually when I like to do it. But, doing it whenever you feel like you have the most going through your mind, I feel like is a very helpful exercise. And being able to find a bit more inspiration and, have the motivation to pursue things that maybe in your daily life you don't have enough time to think about or give enough attention to. So
well, it's just the pace of society. Sometimes it's just go, go, go. Like when you take the time to just stop, pause, and reflect. And writing is a good process. I mean, we talk about it often on the podcast, journaling, taking some time just to write, reflect, and that can be about anything. Just putting your thoughts to paper often helps. I don't journal at the moment, but I've been up and down with journaling, and I certainly do find the benefits of doing that, just setting aside 20 minutes of writing. And the final point, socialize. So obviously about relationships, right? And connecting and human interaction.
Yeah, I think I was really curious about longevity at one point. I still am, but I was doing a lot of research at one point, and very constant thing that came up was relationships, like the quality of them. I think it's a really popular TED talk on it. I forget who it's by, but he talks about, what do all the happiest people have in common, something like that. And the takeaway is, they have high quality relationships. They are within very strong support systems. I did a lot of reading on blue zones, which are these different areas of the world where people live really long lives. And there's one in Japan. It's Ogimi Village in Okinawa, and reading about the people there, again, really close-knit community. They have really good friends if they don't have family anymore, and they feel really close to the people around them. And so, it made me realize that, loneliness is not healthy for us. We function with other people, and I think there is a lot of value in, understanding that there are other people around us. We can build healthier relationships with them by living a more fulfilled life. We feel emotionally and spiritually more fulfilled, and it can be a lot easier to, find energy, recharge, and if you're not in a good place, you'll have the support and help of others around you. Something I do want to note is, making friends seems hard. I'm not like the most outgoing social person if you meet me, but something that I do appreciate in Japan is, and I think it's born out of this collectivist culture, but the idea of aisatsu. I don't really know how to directly translate it, but it's like greetings. It's just like the idea of when you go to school, you say good morning. When you go to work, you say good morning. When you leave work, you say something. When you leave the house, you want to say something. And it's just a little phrase, but I think it really breaks the barrier between strangers and opens up conversation to get to know someone. And so, yeah, if you're looking to be more sociable or likable, I think really good starting point is just trying to say hello or good morning to people around you. Yeah, but
easiest thing we can do, and like, often doesn't get done. You're just like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
No, really good points, and certainly the longevity piece around, having human connections. I know there was a study done about a group of Italians that migrated to Japan, to the US, and they had longer lives than most. Because they had this Italian culture style where they'd just walk down the road and they see their neighbor there and they'd have a big chat, and on their walk, suddenly their half an hour walk turns into 2 hour walks because they're chatting to everyone. And it's so true, and we don't give ourselves time to just talk and socialize with people. I think to your earlier point, if you're introverted, it can be quite draining, so perhaps you just don't do as much of it, but it's still necessary to do it.
For sure. It's definitely, the right number of people, the kinds of people. You don't need to be friends with everyone, but knowing that, you don't need to go through a life alone, I think makes a big difference to our well-being.
100%. Yep, I agree. Look, really cool book. I want to make sure we put the links in the show notes for you there, Kaki, so people can jump online to thehiddenwhy.com, pick up a copy of the book. It is on Amazon there, so use that link within the show notes to support the show and grab a copy of Kaki's book. Now, I just want to talk to you quickly about your writing journey, because I know there's a lot of people out there, whatever passion it might be. Do you have any advice for someone that's on that sort of journey? Because I know it can be quite, well, I don't know, it's not draining necessarily. For me, it hasn't been draining doing this podcast, and I've just done it and I've stuck to it and I enjoy it. And that's probably why I do it. But was there any learnings for you or advice you can give to people that are looking to do something similar?
Of course, there's so many things I can share, but I think the pieces of advice, or the learnings I keep coming back to is, one is to be consistent. I think writing, as you mentioned, it's not like super easy to do it all the time. For some people, they might be tired, they might not have something that they feel like is important enough to write about. But I think just writing anyways is really important. It's kind of like a muscle almost, in that if you stop writing, it becomes a lot harder to write. But once you start writing, you keep writing, like you'll find that you're never running out of ideas. There's always something you want to write about. And so I think consistency is super important. Second thing is trying to let go of the need for everything to be perfect. I think, when you're sharing your words, there's a lot of pressure. It can be kind of scary. And you probably want to make some things sound really eloquent or, professional or profound. And, there's a time and place for that. But if you are, really struggling to just build a rhythm with it, it's about, okay, this isn't perfect. It's not exactly what I want it to be, but it's done. Like I already did it. And to be satisfied enough with that, I think has been really key. So yeah, I would say, those two pieces are
That's good advice. Like, so
yeah.
consistency and don't focus on perfectionism, I suppose.
Yeah.
And getting started. Look, lovely to chat to you today, Kaki. Great to have you online here. Where can people best reach out to you?
Yeah, so sign up for my newsletter. You can go to my website, which is kakikata.space, or there's a link to my newsletter sign up. But yeah,
What was that? Kakikata?
kakikata.space.
How do you spell that?
It's KAKIKATA .space. So SPACE.
Okay.
But yeah, my newsletter, if you sign up, you get my email. I read all my emails, I respond to them. And then you'll get my latest, writings, ideas, and any information or events.
Okay, so kakikata.space, that's where they can sign up with your newsletter.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. And just one question I'd had to ask, and I forgot to. Getting your name out there, I mean, you said at the early days you were just posting it, no one's reading it. What changed? What happened to suddenly, I mean, you've got an audience now, right? That you've got a newsletter.
I would say, it really, like, one article I wrote probably got like responses from like 10 people, and it was on Japanese culture. And then so at that point I was like, okay, I'm going to focus more on this. And I can't really explain what allowed like something else to go viral, but after I wrote about Japanese culture and health, one piece just went viral on the platform Medium. It just did really well. And from
when you say viral, like how many people were looking at this? Thousands?
Like, yeah, it ended up on Katie Couric's newsletter, and I think that's where people found it. And once it kind of like channeled back to me. So I don't know who found it or how it ended up there, but it was a lot of people, and it was really overwhelming because it was really like felt very sudden, but it's a very cool experience as well. You can't always tell why things become popular on the internet.
Yeah. Okay. So just keep doing it, enjoy it, and things will happen. I mean, you didn't have any specific strategy in place to get your name out there. You just chose a platform that worked. Or did you...
I mean, I could talk strategy if that is interest. But I do think, as much strategy as there is, like, people's, reading habits are constantly changing, trends are always changing. So it's best not to hyper focus too much on that. But Medium was very helpful because they get very good SEO. So I like writing on there. They're also very, if they find a piece that they like, you publish or submit it to a publication and it gets accepted, it gets circulated to a wider user base. That's something also is, attaching your material to people who are already established to that space is really good. So something that I like to do was write pieces, submit them to, magazine publications or other podcasts, or trying to do collaborations, and then building an audience from there really helps. And the other is, you kind of want to niche down. I think writing too much about everything, people don't really know what you're doing, but if you can really focus and be like, I do this one thing very well, and you become like the top expert in that field, for that topic, people always come to you. Whereas if you're trying to do everything, people don't, there's always going to be someone else.
That's good advice. Good advice. Well done. Nice to connect with you. And I'll stick all the links in the show notes at thehiddenwhy.com. Kaki, thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you guys for listening. Check it out at thehiddenwhy.com. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.
Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I hope you love what you're hearing. If you like this episode, guys, or any of the episodes that you're listening to here at The Hidden Why, please do me a favor by sharing it. You can share it with your families, you can share it with your loved ones. You can do that by using your favorite social media channels, using the icons on the platform that you're listening to The Hidden Why podcast. Also, guys, if you're a fan of the show, please connect with me. Connect with me at thehiddenwhy.com. I love to hear from you. I love to converse with the people that listen to this show to find out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and perhaps if they have any questions or feedback for the show as well. You can stay up to date with all that I'm releasing here, guys. I do a solo show every Monday, a 3-minute thought every Thursday. I do 2 interviews a week on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and a book review every Friday. You can stay up to date with all that by subscribing to my newsletter at thehiddenwhy.com. Just enter your email address there, and also subscribing to the podcast on the platform that you choose to listen to your podcast. You can also support the show, guys, by using the Amazon links at thehiddenwhy.com. So if you like books, you can get all the books that I review there, and anything else really that you like to purchase through Amazon. So use that link, it helps support the show. And we've also got a deal with Audible, guys. Audible is a fantastic way to listen to all your favorite books. We've got a deal with them so you can get 2 free books when you subscribe, or subscribe to a 30-day free trial. So check that out again at thehiddenwhy.com. Guys, that's it from me. You know what to do. Go out there, breathe more passion into every single moment. Do everything with greater purpose, and in doing so you will discover your hidden why. This is The Hidden Why. My name's Lee Martinuzzi. Until next time, peace, passion and purpose. See you soon.